Hello everybody, I hope you all doing well. In this video we are going to do the API 4 test put all brands list. There. The request method is going to be put. Then response code going to be 405 and response message is going to be this request method is not supported, so it's going to be a negative API test. In this test we are going to perform another negative API test. This time we will send a put request to the brands list endpoint. And what is purpose of the API? Normally brands list is a read-only endpoint and return a list of brands in the system. It is not designed for creating, updating or deleting the brand data. What are we doing in the API 4 tests? We intentionally use the wrong HTTP methods. Then we are trying to send a put request to an endpoint that only supports get. And put is normally used to update existing data, but here there is nothing to update in at this collection level, so the server should reject this request. So this is going to be a negative test case. And according to the description here, response code is 405 and the response message is going to be the request method is not supported. Then HTTP level behavior is going to be the API wrapper returns HTTP 200 as in their design, and inside the JSON body response code equals gonna make 405, and the business level behavior is going to be API clearly tells us this method is not supported for this endpoint, and the error message is going to be this request method is not supported. Why this test is important? A secure and well-designed API must not only work in the correct situations, but also respond safely and clearly in incorrect situations. If the server accepts a put here or returns 200 with a success or silently ignores a request, then the API is badly designed and possibly unsafe. This test verifies that the backend does not allow updating the full brand list we put. It responds with the correct 405 methods not allowed code. It returns a clear error message to the client. So technically, in our Python plus robot framework test, we will send a put request to brands list. Then JSON is a valid format. We need to validate that JSON is a valid format. HTTP wrapper is okay, usually 200 by this API's behavior. Then response code 405, message this request is not supported. And mark the test as pass only if all these conditions are true. Let's summarize this. API 4 provides that the brands list endpoint is protected against unsupported HTTP methods, and we are checking that the server correctly rejects a put request and clearly tells us that this method is not supported. So let's start with defining our Python functions. Let's say API 4. We need to define def put brands list. We need to build the full URL for this endpoint. So the base URL going to be automationexercise.com/API and the final going to be brand list. So URL equals f self.base URL slash brandsList. Then what we need to do next is that send a put request to the brandsList, and it's important that brandsList is designed for the get, so reading only, and we are intentionally using put to check how the API handles an unsupported methods. So return requests put, and we need to write the URL. So it's going to return the raw HTTP response for the further validation. Okay. What's next? We need to call the helper method above to actually send the put request. So we need to define def put brands list should return 405 self and dictionary dict. Then we need to call that method response equals self dot put brands list. Then we are starting the validation with the validation one is going to be check HTTP status code from the server, and according to API behavior, even for errors, and they often return HTTP 200 as a wrapper and put the real status into JSON. So what we do is if response.status code not equal 200, we need to raise the of course as always, but this needs to be like that. Yeah, raise assertion error expected got response not status code, and what? What's wrong there? Let me check. Yeah, like this better. Okay. And the second validation. No. Okay, the second validation is that ensure the body is valid JSON, and this is important because our next will check depend on JSON fields. So what we do, try data equals response.json. This is going to parse response body into Python dictionary. So expect value error. Why we are having always the same problem. Value error. Okay. Value error means the response was not valid JSON. And for a stable API, this is considered as a failure. So raise invalid JSON body response text. Okay. So what we did there, I want to repeat it again. Second validation, ensure the body is valid JSON. This is important because our next checks depend on JSON fields. Then there we say data equals response JSON, so parse response body into a Python dictionary. Then expect value error means that the response was not a valid JSON. So for a stable API, this is considered as a failure. So the last validation. Okay, what we need to do is in the last validation, check the logical API status inside JSON. Then the API should return response code as 405. So we're gonna say if the data.get response code is not equal to 405, then raise assertion error. How we do that? If data.get response code is not equal 405, then raise assertion error. Expected response code 405 got data.get response code dot data. Okay. Then if all validations passed, HTTP wrapper equals to 200, then valid JSON response code is 405, which is method not allowed. Then this means the API correctly rejected the unsupported methods. Then we return data. So what that means, that return JSON data so robot framework can assert fields like message. So return data. Let's create new robot file. API 4. No. API, our test case name going to be put to all brands list. Again, tags. Tags are used to categorize and manage text execution. So regression is going to be run in regression cycles, and API belongs to the API automation suite. So tags allow us to filter and run specific tests from the command line, and they also help in reporting and CI/CD pipelines. So again, we need to call the Python keyword in the results. Result equals put brands list should return 405. So here robot calls a Python keyword, which is Python in the Python file. Put brandsList should return 405. So this keyword sends a put request to brandsList and validates that HTTP response wrapper is 200. Then validates JSON exist and validates JSON response code equals 405. Then the returned JSON object is stored in result for additional checks. So let's say should be equal as integers. Result. Okay. Say something wrong. Let's go to past. Okay. Okay. Then what we do there, this is a built-in robot framework assertion. It compares that the expected result 405, which the actual value returned from the API. So result response code is JSON field and 405 expected methods, which is not allowed. And this ensures the backend clearly communicates rejection of the put request. So let's try it. I know we're gonna have some problem again, maybe. Oh, it passed. As we see, response code is 405. Message this request method is not supported. Let's have this yeah, response code 405. Message this request is not supported. Yes, it worked. So if we want to summarize it, what we did is in API test 4 we verified that put request to a get only endpoint is properly rejected, and we can say that we validate both the HTTP wrapper and the API level response code inside JSON. This confirms the API follows the correct security and functional rules. See you in the next video.